Welcome back to the channel. In today's session, this is all about scaling drawings. Of course, in PlanSwift, they won't come scaled after you import them, something we did in a previous tutorial. So you have to scale the drawings. There's several ways of doing that. We're going to go through each one of them step by step so you understand the best way to scale your drawings and to check the scale. Okay, let's get started. In our importing plans session, we imported plans two ways. One, individual drawings that would show up as the individual file names in our pages window. For example, here we see demolition plan, site plan, floor plan, typical of loading in multiple PDFs. If you had a single combined PDF that had multiple drawings in it, it would show up as the name of the drawing, as we see here, where it says structural winter responsible. I don't remember where I got that one from, but they're all the same name. And we would have to go through there and rename those if we wanted them to mean anything. Now, we could use them just the way they are, but typically we would rename them. And we're going to talk about page naming in another video. This one is simply about scaling your drawings after you brought them in. As you can see, there's nothing on the right side to indicate that we've done anything here. So we're just going to start on the first one that pops up in here. And it's pretty simple. The easiest and simple way to scale your plans, if they have an existing scale, is to go to the page, first determine, is this a singular scaled page or multiple scaled page? Simply meaning, are there multiple drawings on this page, and on this page there are two, and do they represent the same scale or different scales? So we go in here and we check and we see the one area says 1/8 equals 1 foot, and the other way it's the same scale, 1/8 equals 1 foot. So it really doesn't matter which one we're doing it on because it's all the same scale. So now that we've checked and confirmed that it says 1/8 inch equals 1 foot, so I'm going to go to, you see where you've got your scale and the ruler icon above. I'm going to go to the little down arrow. I'm going to click on that. It's going to drop down box, and it's going to give me a selection. I'm going to match and pick the 1/8 equals 1 foot. And now it says up in the upper corner in the plan, scale 1/8 equals 1 foot, and confirms that down on PlanSwift. The reason it does that on PlanSwift is sometimes when you're zooming in, you're not going to see that notation in the upper left-hand corner of your main screen, but you can always see it in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen, below the pages, bookmarks, attachments, and notes icons at the bottom. So, all right. What have I said over and over, if you've been watching the other videos, is once you set a scale, it's up to you, no one else, it's no one else's responsibility to check the scale. Really all you need to do is look for some dimensions, and we have dimensions on here, and I'll typically look for the largest dimension I can find. And I won't spend a lot of time on it, but this one, it seems to be, looks like 10 feet. That's not big, but no doubt, we're still going to be able to check it. We go up to the dimensions icon, which is next to the right of the scale icon, and we just click on that once. It's going to bring up a little toolbar here with our mouse, and we're going to go from one side. I go from right to left, so when I go to check it, it doesn't cover up the naming or label. It's already there. So I just go zoom in all the way, click, and then I use my left arrow key because that's the direction I'm going in. It asks me to enter a dimension. It says 10. I hit enter, and then I check it. That's good. Now, that's usually all I do, because typically drawings that come from the architect engineers, they're not compressed scales, meaning scales aren't different in each direction. If it's 1/8 in one direction, it's 1/8 in both directions. So, but if you really wanted to, there's nothing wrong with checking here. Here's a vertical scale. I just go in there and click on the dimension again, go up, click on it, hit the down arrow key, and this was 4/8, so I enter 4.8. Hit enter. Good to go. Now, this drawing has been checked, has been scaled and been checked, and typically I will always take my highlighter, and we're going to have a whole session on highlighting, and just click on to mark the color you want to. Click on whatever color, and then click on highlight, and you just draw a little box, hit escape, and that tells me when I'm looking at the drawings later on, this has been scaled and it's been checked. The green means good. That's simple. We have scaled this page. Now, let's look at alternate ways you can scale it. When PlanSwift were first created, they didn't have a drop-down box. You had to always enter the scale through the scale dialog box. So we're in the site plan here. So rather than click on we're going to go back to scale, but rather than click on the down arrow, we're going to go up and we're going to click on the icon, the ruler icon itself. It's going to bring up a dialog box. Basically says standard, FIS, metric, and auto. Standard is if you want to enter your scale in the drawing, what I call manually. You're entering a feet and inches and fractions if necessary, and you're going to set a start and ending point for that drawing. We're setting the scale manually. We're creating a distance, and we're actually going to measure that distance and create that scale in that direction. So as an alternate to the way I did it, you can go in here and go to auto, pick a scale like 1/8, click on that, and there's some choices here. Apply scale to all pages. Just don't do it. It's as simple as that. If you were bringing in the pages yourself, that's one thing, and you all knew that every page was the same scale. But if you're bringing in drawings, you're an estimator like I am, the drawings are going to change scale all over the place. You don't want to do that. That's a disaster waiting to happen. So keep that unchecked. The one that says automatically, or the checkbox for automatically create dimension lines, that's grayed out because you're not drawing a line with this one. You're simply applying a scale. So if we go OK here, basically we'll see just like the other one we did with the drop down, we've got a directional scale arrow in two directions. Basically says it's scaled in two directions, and it says in the upper corner 1/8 inch equals 1 foot. And that matches like, oh no, the scale is 1/16. We didn't check it first. I did that on purpose. Go back to auto, change it to 1/16, and it's just that simple. So don't feel bad if you've done something. You don't need to reload the plan and redo it. Just change the scale. As long as you haven't done a takeoff first, it's not going to matter. And then how do we check something that doesn't have a dimension on it? Well, we can go down to a known item. When I say known items, typically, and there's always exceptions, double doors typically are 6 feet wide. Single man doors are typically 3 feet wide. So it's a simple check. Find you a double door if you're looking at architectural drawings. Find a double door, zoom in on as much as you can, hit your dimension line, and get just right in the middle of it. You don't have to be exact. This is just a check. Either it's going to be close or not close. It's not going to be in between. Click that, and then I'm going to hit the right arrow, and I'm going to hit 6 and enter. That's a 6-foot doorway. We're good to go. I've checked it. Now I could check it another direction, but I guarantee it's going to come up with the same thing. So this drawing is scaled, and now we're going to go down here, and we're going to highlight that we've scaled and checked this drawing. It's now 1/16. Now that we've shown you a second way to dimension a drawing by selecting a preset scale, we're going to show you a way to select or scale a drawing that has no pre-select. Either the scale is wrong, which happens. You checked it and the scale is not correct. You're going to have to create your own scale. Or there's no scale listed, which sometimes happens. So we've got a drawing here in this floor plans with a lot of dimensions. It makes it real easy to create the scale and apply it. So we see these dimensions in here. I'm going to go with one that's either 90 degrees or 180 degrees just because it's a little easier to deal with for the purposes of this video. Here's a nice dimension. When I say 180 degrees top to bottom, it says 28 feet 3 1/4 inches. So I'm going to go and click on my scale, my icon, not my drop down. And the first thing it always brings up is that standard. And remember, we said that standard is for creating the scale yourself. You're not picking one off a list. So I can move this box around, and I can see here, so I'm going to go 28, and I use the period to jump to the next box. 3 inches, period, 1, period, quarter. Now it matches this, what I'm going to try to replicate it, 28, 3 1/4, and I go OK. And I'm going to zoom in as much as I can until it stops. Get right in the center of the line, because really the center of the line is where AutoCAD or whatever program that drew this, where the line actually creates. The thickness of the line is dependent upon the program, but the actual center of the line is mathematically where that line is. So we're going to click there, and then we're just going, you can use your right mouse button to move around, and you see that pan figure come up without losing your scrolling. And I can also zoom out, use the combination of the mouse to move around and zoom in as fast as much as I can and get dead center. At the bottom there, your ortho should be set on, clicked on. That keeps the line straight in either a 180, a 90 degree, or other similar known properties, 45, 22.5, you get it. I zoomed in as much as I can, and it says click, your screen says, it's telling you, click endpoint a dimension for scaling. That looks good. And now remember we talked about drawing the line? Because it was grayed out on the other one. This one draws a line for you. It's meant to. It draws a line. If the line's big enough, you'll see arrow endpoints on it as well. Now that we've created the scale vertically, we need to check the scale horizontally or 180 degrees to it, perpendicular to it, to make sure the scale is correct. When I pick that, it's actually doing the scale in both directions. It doesn't show you that on the little icon there, but the reality is it knows you scaled something top to bottom. So we simply need to check the horizontal scale. We're just going to check this one here, 33 1/6. It should be good enough. We're going to go back up to our dimension, and we're going to zoom in and get right in on that. And we're going to go out here, and the 36 ends right here. And you can see 33 1/6. That's typically why I like to go the other direction, because one supplants the other, and it's a little harder to read, but we're good. Horizontally, and that's close enough for horizontally, the scale checks. So I can come down here and hit highlight, just to remind myself that this has been scaled and I've checked it. So just to summarize, when you bring your drawings in, you have to scale them. The easiest way is to go up to the scale icon, pull down, and pick a scale that matches the scale your drawing says it is. Otherwise, you can go to the ruler and you can go over to auto and do the same thing. You can pull down a scale. It virtually does the same thing that we did just with the pull down, just one step less. If you don't have a scale, or the scale is wrong on the drawing, that's when you're going to go to standard. You're going to enter feet, inches, and fractions if you're doing that, or you can enter in decimal points if you want. I always like the feet, inches, and fractions. I just stay with that. Enter that, draw the beginning, draw the end lines, then check it. You're good to go. Now, the other thing we talked about, and we'll end our session on, is how to pick a scale. Let's see if we can find one here. Here's a good one. Here's basically a detail page where typically we wouldn't be doing takeoff on, but you do have a little drawing here. You see here that it's takeoff on, and that drawing says not to scale. Well, that's not any good, is it? All these are not to scale. So we're going to stop, and we're going to come back to another one. let's stop and pick this back up. Now, the other thing we talked about, and we'll end our session on, is how to pick a scale. Let's see if we can find one here. Here's a good one. All right, I had to go into and pick a different plan because the plan we had didn't have a drawing in it that had multiple scales. So here's a different one that we actually worked on in another session. This drawing is exteriors there in details, and it shows basically multiple scales. If we look at one here, detail number 1, it's at 1/2 inch equals 1 foot. Detail 5, 3 inches equals 1 foot. So let's say pretend for a minute that I was doing a takeoff of this exterior railing and I needed to know the size of this. So I would go in and set the scale. That says 1/2 inch equals 1 foot. And I set that and I check it. So I go to my dimensions and let's see, here's a little 1 foot connection or dimension. 1 foot. Checks out fine, so I'm ready to go, and let's say I was doing anything here, and basically okay, now I'm depending on knowing that area for my takeoff. But here I go like, I've got something here, and I don't need to do a takeoff, but I need to check something. And I'm going to go ahead and use my dimension. And I want to check something here, and so the first thing I do is I check the scale. I'm going like, well, that's not 2 feet. Why is that? Because it says it's a different scale. So the way you get around that is if you needed to, if you have a drawing with multiple scales in it, is to go to your page tab, and then you'll see a icon, crop as new page. And go ahead and have the area that you want to use out in you can see it on your screen, and say crop as new page, and starting at a corner, doesn't matter which corner, go and draw that and just highlight that page. And when you get done, drag in the box, let it go, and name it. So in this case, it was detail 5 of A512. And I could say more about it, but for this, that's fine. It makes a page, its own page. Detail 5, A512. And now I can go back, click on the Home tab, and click on the arrow down, pick 3 inches equals 1 foot. It's a scale we can pick off there. And now I want to go and check this dimension. I go arrow up and hit period first to get it off feet, 4 inches. It's kind of a big 4 inches, isn't it? But it works. I actually go here, my little dialog box in the bottom right corner, watch what I do. Text height, 0.25. Drop that text down. Now I've scaled this drawing, and I go and can check anything I want to on this drawing because I got the proper scale. That is how you pull a portion of a page out into a new page and then set it to whatever scale you want to. So that's all for today's session on scaling drawings. We'll see you next time.